There's an article in a magazine called Air and Space Forces. It's this month. Oh, September 2023. There's an editorial section in the very beginning that will become of some interest to some people. It's called the China Syndrome. And there's a little itty bitty thing in there about Tiananmen Square. Anybody understand Tiananmen Square? Yeah. What occurred in 1989, where a student went to the president of the country in Beijing and demanded this time it really doesn't make any difference. He demanded on air, a live broadcast on air, he demanded things from the president of the country. Are you kidding? Any political science student in the United States says you don't demand something from a communist dictatorship, for he will lose face. And what will happen? Well, simple. He will bring military troops in there, and they're going to wipe you guys out off the face of the earth. And that's exactly what happened. The Tiananmen Square massacre, and that's what happened. But there's an article in the New York Times magazine from a few years before, in 1981, started explaining things, what led up to Tiananmen Square 9 years later. And it's a very interesting article. Well, not very little thing. Yeah. That's a very interesting article. And that in 1985, it was shown that there were 50,000 Communist Chinese students studying in the United States. Ranges from the age of 18 to maybe 50. We got 50-year-old students there? Yeah. I was a 50-year-old student in college. I mean, I don't know why anybody else can be. Yes. And what did they do? Well, basically, they spent their weekends in the library. What do you mean they spend their weekends in the library? They spent their weekends in the library. They stayed there all night, studied, and that thing. But one of the things that the Chinese students found out, their counterparts in the United States, maybe Chinese, but basically American Anglos, they're not very smart. Why? Well, first of all, they don't fill up the libraries, either at night, after school, or definitely not on weekends. So a Chinese student coming from China goes in there, and there's only Chinese students there. Wow. Why? The Americans are partying. One of the things the Chinese students found out is they have a dorm room. Yeah, okay. They may share it with another person, but many times they can get a dorm room for themselves, by themselves. The Chinese government's paying for it. And, okay. It's the big as the apartment they left it back in China from their parents, the family. They found out that while their money is not much, they have to spend, nobody really cares what they spend it on. They found out they can get a motorbike. All at once, campuses start filling up with motorbikes. Yes, on campus, running around the city they're living in. They can go eat anywhere they want. Well, they're going to go into a Chinese restaurant. After a while, they found out they don't have to go to a Chinese restaurant. You know, they learn English, they can go anywhere they want. They can learn Russian and go anywhere they want. Nobody really cares. Nobody really cares they're from Communist China because there's no badge on them. They all dress thing. Some of them do dress as from the old country, but they don't dress that way. They become Americanized. And that basically is, they go back to China in the summertime. They get put in a cramped little room. They go to universities that may have equipment there and may not have equipment there. And then they start complaining a few times among themselves, and then they start complaining to their parents. Major universities like that. They go back home and they start complaining that I have a dorm room the size of my parents' apartment. I can drive a motor vehicle. They drive cars, clunkers. I can get a permit. I'm a student. I can get a permit. And as a student, I have a little card that says I can work as a student. Yes, it's one of those programs. As a foreign student, you can work in the United States. And nobody cares about me. To them, I'm from San Francisco. I speak Chinese. Or from California, or a city where there are Chinese. I learned English, it's broken English, but many of the students in the class are also from foreign governments, and they're learning English too. Wow. And nobody cares I'm from China. I don't have to show a passport anywhere. Nobody cares I'm from China. I get to go anywhere I want. I can drive on holidays across the country. Now they go back to China and they tell their mommy and daddies about having a apartment, a dorm the size of the apartment they live in, and they go back to work in the country, and very likely they're not going to get a job anywhere. Well, they're going to go to university, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, but they're not going to really do anything. They can sit there and go into a factory and watch other peasants work. Peasants, yes, peasants work. Wow, that is bad. That is really bad. But again, Tiananmen Square, bound to happen. You get a lot of students start complaining. They tell their cousins that I have this, I have that, we should get this, we should get that. They want bigger apartments. They want the right to drive a car. They just got 4 years, 6 years, or a PhD in the United States. And they come back and they're treated by party members, their parents, as being almost idiots. And their party member parents are also in these small little ghetto apartments. And they tell their parents, I had a dorm bigger than this room. And their parents complain. And Tiananmen Square was bound to happen. But again, I say go read this thing at China Syndrome, Air and Space Forces magazine of September 2023. And it's very interesting. Actually, what is very interesting is saying it's a real critical of the United States military that after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the fall of the Soviet Union, What did the United States do? The Cold War is over with. As one of the little things, little clip in there, they paid military people to retire. They cut everything down. Boom! Whereas China looked at it, laughed, and built everything up. Well, one of the reasons they built everything up, because they were getting American dollars from the United States. Yeah. They were getting American dollars. The shirt is made in China. This is made in China. This is made in China. This is made in China. Yeah. Very likely this old laptop is made in China. Yeah. Because it's cheaper to make this in China with, you make this here, you're going to pay some worker $25 an hour to make it here. They can make somebody a lot less in China. As our printers are made in China. Well, I've got an IBM typewriter sitting over here, a Selector typewriter, and it's made in the United States. But you know what killed that? What's that? An Apple board. An Apple keyboard killed an IBM Selector typewriter. And I bought a corrector IBM Selector typewriter decades back in the 80s. 80s? Yes, 70s, I guess. And it cost me $2,000. I had to really save for that. Then I bought an Apple II Plus in 77, 78. And it cost $1,600 with a small little processor inside. 16K processor. Wow. And a keyboard. And I could go on a keyboard. Really learn how to type. But, yeah. Oh, well, it's a good article. It's a one page. Usually it's only one page. But it really shows how we really screwed it up, how we're in this position. We blundered into Iraq. Well, considering this, we blundered into Iraq by stopping a dictator who was building, he wasn't building a megaton bomb. He was planning to release yellow cake over the cities. You want to clear up Manhattan Island? Saddam could have shipped into the United States 50 pounds of RDX the same way he got it in a water bottle case. And that 50 pounds of RDX could take down, to make a hell of a big mess of a lobby of a building. Why did we go into Iraq? To get rid of Saddam Hussein, because he was working on weapons of mass destruction, biological, chemical, and basically that thing. He bought gas centrifuges from Urenco. Check it out. In the year 2000, Urenco celebrated selling their millionth gas centrifuge. But that's another point. Yeah, that's a good article. Boy, did we screw up. Well, yeah. Our Congress screwed up. They slashed everything in our military. The typical thing. Typical. You know, if Saddam, I mean, not Saddam, but if Putin didn't invade Ukraine, very likely it would have been pulled out of NATO. You know, Putin's friend, Donald Trump, yeah. And if Donald Trump didn't do his takeover of the United States January 6th, there wouldn't be indictments against him. Yes. Well. Good reading.